Hi, it's Miss Southam again, ready to read you Chapter 4 of Kaspar, Prince of Cats by Michael Morpurgo. Chapter 4. Who gives a fig anyway? Elizabeth looked up at me and smiled. Hello, she said. My name is Miss Elizabeth Stanton. What's your cat called? Kaspar, I told her. Is he yours? Yeah, I said, and this is my room too. I knocked and there was no one in, she went on, so I thought it would be a good place to hide. I like hiding. Then I saw this cat lying on the bed, and he looked so sad. He's very beautiful, but he's very thin, you know, and he doesn't look at all well. Look at him. He's starving hungry. You should feed Kaspar more often. That's what I think. Your mother's been looking for you. She thought you'd got lost, I told her, trying my best to hide my growling irritation. To be honest, I didn't much like being told by some hoity-toity little rich girl that Kaspar needed to eat more, and I'd been trying that for weeks on end now to get him to just do that. And although I was relieved to see Kaspar eating again, I had to confess I was more than a little upset that this little girl seemed to have succeeded so easily where I'd failed. So the truth is that at our first meeting, I was not at all disposed to like Miss Elizabeth Stanton. She seemed far too full of herself for my liking. You just wait till I tell Mama and Papa about Kaspar, she went on. Can I take him downstairs to show them? It hadn't even occurred to me until that moment that this little girl could blow our whole secret. I crouched down so that we were face to face and put my hands on her shoulders. She had to know just how serious I was about this. You can't say a word, I told her. The thing is, you see, I'm not all allowed to keep pets up here. Against the rules, see? No pets in the servants' quarters. If anyone finds out, I'll get the sack, lose my position. I'll have nowhere to live, and neither will Kaspar. No one else knows he lives up here, so you won't tell anyone, will you? It'll be our little secret, right? She was looking at me very intently all the while. She thought for a moment or two, then she said, I don't like rules, especially unfair rules, like this not being allowed to keep a cat. So I won't tell anyone, cross my heart and hope to die. Then she said, but you will let me come up and feed Kaspar again, won't you? I hadn't any choice. I suppose so, I said, if you want to. Oh, I do, she cried. I like him so much and he likes me. I know he does. It was true. Kaspar was looking up at her adoringly. He could hardly take her eyes off her. She grabbed my hand and shook it. Oh, thank you, but I don't know your name, do I? Johnny Trot, I told her. She let out a peal of laughter. Johnny Trot, that's such a funny name. Bye, Kaspar. Bye, Johnny Trot. And still giggling, she skipped off down the corridor and was gone. As I watched her go, I remembered the last person who had found my name so funny. I was already disliking Elizabeth a little less. I had no idea then that I still had no idea now how she managed to get Kaspar to eat his liver that morning. I asked her later on, once I got to know her better, and she gave me one of her infuriating shrugs. It's easy when you know how, she told me. Animals always do whatever I want, because they know I'd do anything for them. And that's because they know I love them. And that's why they love me. She had this way, as some children do, of making everything sound so simple and straightforward. After the first surprise visit, Miss Elizabeth Stanton, or Elizabeth, as I discovered she liked to be called, came up to my room to feed Kaspar at least twice a day without fail. Sometimes I was there, sometimes I wasn't. Whenever she said I'd find a little scribbled note on my pillow, it would say something like this. Dear Johnny Trot, I came to feed Kaspar again. I stole some smoked salmon for my breakfast. He likes it a lot, which I don't, because it smells of fish, which is horrible. I made your bed too, which you didn't, and you should. Don't worry, your secret's safe, promise. I like secrets because it's like hiding, and I like hiding from my friend, Elizabeth. There's no doubt at all in my mind that it was the arrival of Elizabeth that saved Kaspar's life. Somehow she brought joy into his life where there had been only sorrow. With her there beside him, he was eating and drinking everything that was in front of him. Within a week he was beginning to sharpen his claws, mostly on the curtains, but sometimes on my trousers and when I was wearing them too. That hurt a lot. I didn't mind much though, because I was just so happy to see him getting better. His coat shone, his tail swished, and when one day he smiled up at me, I knew for sure that Prince Kaspar Kandinsky was himself again. Elizabeth had lifted his spirits, and she'd lifted mine too. But I was worried that one day she might let the cat out of the bag, so to speak. I kept reminding her that secrecy was everything. Remember, Elizabeth, you've got to keep stum, I told her one evening, tapping my nose conspiratorially. She liked that, So whenever she left my room after that, she'd tap her nose. "Stum," she'd whisper. "I gotta keep stum." Lisbeth became quite a little mascot on our corridor, and quite a hero too on every account, on everything she'd done for Kaspar. She may have been a little bit on the talkative side and could be quite mischievous too. She was a bundle of fun and she made us all laugh. But I couldn't help wondering whether she might one day become too overexcited and blurt out the secret by mistake. I took all the precautions I could, asking her to always check behind her before she climbed the stairs to our corridor, and I made an absolute rule that she spoke in whispers whenever she came to see us. Those, it seemed, were the kind of rules she was quite happy with. Lisbeth liked anything, I discovered, that involved some kind of conspiracy. It was during these long whispered conversations in my room that I had got to know so much more about her. Actually, to begin with, they weren't conversations at all. Not as such. They were more like monologues. Once Elizabeth started one of her stories, there was no stopping her. "Do you know," she began, and on she'd go and on. She'd sit there all cross-legged on the floor of my room with Kaspar on her lap and just talk and talk. I'd be happy to live because she told me of the world I'd never seen inside before. For over a year now, ever since I'd left the orphanage, I'd served people like her in the Savoy, fetched and carried for them, polished their boots, brushed their coats, opened the doors for them, bowed and scraped as bellboys have to do. But until now, not one of